how you doing? So we're back once again with part 4 of Project Bolt, the classic mini race car build. So in this week's update we make some real progress. So you'd have seen last week was welding in all the new metal and getting the shell ready for painting, and in this week's update Mark paints the shell. It was painted over the Christmas period, so between Christmas and New Year. A lot of time spent preparing, priming, spraying, and then rubbing down, compounding and polishing up the paint afterwards. So I would like to say I had a hand in this, but spraying is not my field of expertise, nor is it Mark's actually. But I think, like I said right from the beginning, Mark's keen to do this build himself, or be involved with it the whole way through. I'm no expert on spraying, so I didn't want to offer him any advice or do it for him and get it wrong. So he's kind of taken some advice, done some reading and got on with it and done the job himself, and he's made a really great job of it. So in a moment I'll just go into some more finer details of what was involved in that paint job, but I think when you see the end result of it, he's done a cracking job, seeing it's the first time he's ever had a go at spraying a complete car. So just firstly, a couple of lessons learnt really. So Mark bought a mask very similar to this sort of mask here, which is what I use for just little bits of spraying. It's fine, it's a 3M mask this. It does a good job of stopping you breathing in the dust and fumes and that sort of thing, but really it's a bit limited. If you're doing the odd panel here or a bit of spraying with a rattle can, they work really well. But Mark found out pretty fast that when you're spraying a whole car, it just doesn't cut the mustard really. So you'll see in the photos that Mark upgraded and bought a full face mask, which worked much better for him. Little tip from him is wipe the screen over with baby wipes first, and that just stops the paint sticking to it while you're spraying the actual car. And the other little lesson learnt really, like I say, this is a learning exercise for Mark and me, to be honest. As I say, I do a bit of paint work, but I've certainly never sprayed a whole car before. Mark bought a spray gun similar to this, so it's a high volume, low pressure spray gun. Pretty standard for car spraying, to be honest. And I think, like, this is a Sealy one. It cost, I think it was about 40 quid. I bought it a few years ago. I've done a few bits with it, certainly never sprayed a whole car with it. Mark bought a similar one, but he had problems with it just not giving a consistent fine mist of spray, spluttering, dripping, that sort of thing. So he took the plunge, went out and bought a top end spray gun, and it was just much better to use, gave a much better finish. So if you're doing just little bits, something like this might be alright, but if you're doing a whole car, it's probably worth spending, you know, upwards of a couple of £100 to get a decent spray gun, and the results, the paintwork, will pay dividends. So just to give you an idea of some numbers involved here, Mark spent approximately 25 hours preparing, priming, top coat, rubbing down, polishing, wet flattening the car, so took quite a bit of time. 2 cans of stonechip were used on the underside of the car. Approximately 3 litres of primer, 8 litres of high build primer was used and flatted down before the top coat. And in total, quite amazingly, inside, outside and underneath, took 10 litres of top coat. So and Mark flatted down and polished that top coat as well. So like I say, Mark's very particular, very thorough, likes to do a great job. Top coat on the body actually had 8 coats of paint on it in the end. The final top coat on the car took around about 4 hours to do, leaving it about 20 minutes between each top coat, and then finally that was left 8 hours before starting to wet flat that and compound polish it with Clay rubbing compound. As you'll see in the photos, the doors, bonnet and boot were sprayed separately, so they were sprayed off the car, and there's a little bit of a story to tell there, which maybe I'll go into the next episode. But yeah, we had a problem with one of the doors.